Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Cartographers Heroes from Thunderworks Games. This is going to be a review of Cartographer Heroes, as well as the various map packs that came out along with this. I will also talk briefly about the differences between the original Cartographers and Cartographers Heroes. When I say briefly, it's because there are very, very few changes. We're going to go over the game, how it plays, all those things, as well as do you need to pick this up if you already own the original Cartographers and all that kind of stuff. So let's start this off. Cartographers is a roll and write game, or more specifically a flip and write game. You're going to be flipping cards, which are going to show you different terrain types that you're going to draw on your individual board, slowly building out structures as you build out your village, or whatever this thing over here is. The reason you're doing this is ultimately to fulfill these goals over here. You see every single round across 4 rounds, spring, summer, winter, autumn, or maybe it's spring, summer, autumn, winter, that seems like the right order. You're going to be scoring for 2 goals. So for example, in spring over here, the first round of the game, you're going to score 4 goals A and B. You're going to look at these cards, which are very variable. You have a whole bunch of options over here as far as the different cards that can go out on the table, different goals that are going to be structured around how you do different things. You know, have one of each terrain type in a row, scoring points for filled rows, scoring points for this terrain next to that terrain, for that terrain around mountains. There's going to be all these different goals in the game, and you'll pick 4 different goals in order to line up with these, and then in spring you'll score A and B, in summer you'll score B and C, then C and D, then D and A, effectively ensuring that every single goal is scored twice, and that's going to be where you have to start making decisions. You see, as a card gets revealed, as you reveal a new type, you're going to lower it so you can see the total. We have a total of 3, which means when spring, we're going to keep going until we get to a total of 8 or more, and then we'll move into the next season, but before we do, we'll score those goals. In this case, we drew Frontier Dwelling, and we will draw that shape on our board, on our respective boards. Each of us have our own sheet. We're going to draw that shape on our sheet. We're going to go ahead and choose one of those 2 terrain types, and we're doing that being mindful of what the options here, whether we're trying to prep for scoring this round, whether we're trying to prep for scoring next round. We're just trying to draw things on our sheet, being mindful of that. As you encircle mountains on your board, you're going to earn coins. There are other things you can do to earn coins as well. So for instance, this card over here, if you choose this shape, this one gives you a specific terrain type, but you can choose a shape instead. But if you choose that shape, you'll also earn a coin. And coins are going to score you points every single round in addition to these goals. So you're building out your sheet, you're slowly drawing things down, you're drawing the respective shapes as you go, making the little shaded, symbols, the houses, the trees, the river, all that stuff, to build out a board that is going to score as many points as possible. That's the crux of Cartographers, and so far it's not even different than, well, Heroes versus Cartographers yet. In Cartographers, you're also going to have a few other things that we haven't touched upon yet, though. We're going to have monsters. Now, monsters are going to be true for Cartographers and Heroes as well, but these monsters, once they come out, and this changes if you're playing solo or not, but once these monsters come out, you're going to pass your pad to somebody else who gets to draw a shape on your board somewhere where ideally it frustrates you. Ideally, where this monster gets in the way of your board, messing you up on points or different things. And the monsters have shapes, sometimes they have abilities, a little bit of complexity to them. The monsters in Heroes are a bit more complex than the monsters in Cartographers, but they're both fairly similar as far as what they add to the game. Now Heroes, what Heroes does is it's going to add these cards over here, these heroes, shockingly enough, to your experience. Where the original Cartographers had runes that you want to be mindful of, and those runes are still printed on all the maps in case you want to play with those, but they don't get in the way in case you don't. But we have heroes instead, that every single round you're going to shuffle in 1 monster and 1 hero into your deck. Now they may not come out, that's the way things go, but the bad news or good news, depending on what you're looking at, is they stay in the deck for next round. So if a monster or hero doesn't come out in spring, you may end up getting 2 in summer. That's possible. Or you may never see them entirely. That's also possible. But these heroes give you a way to fight the monsters, putting down a hero on the board and being able to effectively neutralize the monsters based on the patterns that those heroes have. So again, it just gives you something to combat the monsters that your person sitting to your left or your right decided to so lovingly pass your way. That's going to be that. We have the point scoring every single round, where, as I mentioned, you're going to score 4 points as well as the specific goals every single round across 4 rounds. And then when you get to the end of the game, you will sum up your points and you'll show off your beautiful map, and that is effectively Cartographers Heroes. Now, differences between Cartographers and Heroes, just for those who jump to the timestamp, is like I said already throughout this video, you're going to have a little bit more complex monsters, and you're going to be focusing on heroes instead of runes as opposed to the original Cartographers. You also have slightly different configurations on your map, but nothing, that notable. And Cartographers in general is very good about having double-sided options on the board, so each side of your sheets that you get give you different maps. That's going to be true for cartographers, it's going to be true for heroes, and it's going to be true for the map packs as well. Now, before we dive into the map packs, let's go ahead and talk about the skills expansion. This is something that has been true in general. I believe they have the ambush expansion and the skills expansion. This is a little bit modular, a little module you can throw in. This is the mini expansion 2, I believe, but it's basically some skills you have access to every round. You have these options. You're going to be putting down skills on the table that other players can buy, spending their coins to earn an ability. It gives you something else to consider, a little bit extra decision space as you play through the game. And then we have the map packs. The map packs, we have 3 over here. We have the Undercity, we have Afril, I think that's Afril, it might be a Z, and then we have Nebulous. I'm probably butchering all those names, but we basically have 3 maps. So, let's go through them one at a time. I believe we have Afril as the first one over here, and Afril is going to give you a bunch of disconnected, let's flip that over here, a bunch of disconnected islands. These islands, you're going to start the game by connecting one island pair to another, so you have 2 sets of islands, and you can only ever build out your shapes on those islands. At any point, you can spend a coin to start expanding more to other islands, and that's important because the earlier you spend that coin, the more flexibility you have in the game, but that also means that coin, if you hold off spending it, you might be able to score points for it every round while you still have it, because you'll have to cross off those coins on the sidebar over here. So that's another interesting bit of decision space, and a lot more compressed in what you can do because you're operating on these boards as opposed to a giant island. You're also going to get these cards over here, specific goal cards, that instead of the location, I don't know what their terminology is, but the scoring cards have different symbols on the back, and you're supposed to have one of each type, and these will replace one of the specific types, giving you something more suited to this island. Having all the symbols of a type on each island, score 5 points for each of those. For your longest completed row on each island. The idea of these is to not just lean into a different map, but to have the scoring reflect the map you're playing on, and so that's what you're going to get with Afril over here. From there we move to Nebulous, and Nebulous is going to give you another map, although no scoring card variation. Instead, we have volcanoes and lava messing up your board. You see, you have a volcano over here, and that again is different depending on the side you're playing on. Let's go ahead and show this over here. So you can have the volcano all the way to the side of your board, or you could have it in the center board. That's a choice you can make, but as you play this out, as you start drawing out your shapes, you occasionally will be confronted with, well, lava. Lava that has to go onto your board, but you have to destroy hexes on the board. Now, you could put it on empty spaces where you will no longer be able to build, or you can put it on spaces you already build, for better or for worse, or even on monsters, destroying monsters. That could be smart, except ideally, if your opponent is properly mean, they're not putting the monsters next to your volcano. But the truth is, the lava can spread pretty quickly, so who knows how that plays out. But anyways, it gives you lava over there. So the rest of the board is mostly the same. It just gives you a giant danger zone that you have to be mindful. Things are going to start getting hot and melted very quickly in that zone. You have control over it, but it has to all connect back to the volcano. And then lastly, we have, for the last expansion, it is called the Undercity. The Undercity is going to give you, shockingly enough, an Undercity. The board is going to be divided up into 2 spots, an above and below ground, and a grand same thing, you have a different side on the other side with a little bit more control as to where the gate gets drawn. You see, in the Undercity, you have a starting gate on this side. On the advanced side, you get to choose where to draw the gate before the game begins, and everything you do has to connect back to that gate. And then you're trying to build, and everything you do has to be placed either above or below. You cannot cross that line. Think of it as 2 separate islands, similar to Afril, but with different rules as far as how the game progresses, as far as connecting back to the gate, as far as just dividing the board into 2 spots. Similarly to Afril, you'll also have 3 different goal cards that give you something to be mindful of, trying to connect mountains to runes, trying to build as much as possible full lines and columns below ground. Again, just giving you something different to do, a way to incorporate not just a different board, but also different goals as far as how you play. And those are basically the 3 map expansions for cartographers. And all 3 of those are compatible with the original cartographers, as well as with Cartographers Heroes, which means we've covered kind of everything. So it's time to go into the review part of stuff. As far as ease of play, this game's incredibly easy to learn. Rulebook's fairly quick, fairly easy to go through. It's incredibly easy to teach. It's basically draw a card, draw a bunch of stuff, and then the most complicated part of the game is usually explaining the individual goals and making sure everyone is fully clear on them. And this is important. Make sure to remind people again and again that you're only scoring 2 goals per round. It is very easy. It almost always happens to me that I teach the game, I teach the goals, and then I don't sit there. If I don't focus and remind them and tell them, then suddenly they're playing that entire entire first round as if everything is scoring right away. They're so focused on the absorption of information they just had that they forgot you only score 2 per round. So I do recommend reminding people of that. It usually saves people a lot of time of, oh my gosh, totally forgot. It'll save you time, so I recommend that. But past that, very easy game to teach. A bunch of modular stuff you can throw in and out. Differences between cartographers and the original heroes. If you've played cartographers and you're teaching heroes, it'll take you 30 seconds to explain the differences. There's really not a lot of extra stuff. It's just another variation of the game and a new map and a small adjustment to the experience. As far as player count, this is a 1 to 100 game. Basically, you have as many pens or pencils as you need, as many maps, you could just rip them off. You can play this over remote play if you multiple have cartographers, or if you just want to print out your own sheets or whatever it is. There's tons of ways to play this game, lots of flexibility. That's one of the general pros of roll and write experiences. It could get a little harder over remote play with the monster situation of drawing monsters on someone else's board, but it never gets that hard. So there's always ways to mess with that. And, I mean, I'm not really reviewing this as a remote play game, I'm just saying it's a possibility. But yeah, very accommodating as far as player count. I don't even know the player counts I've played it at. I've played it at solo, at 2, at 3, at 4. I don't know if I've gone higher than 4, and I've played this game at a bunch of player counts. I don't know if I've ever tried playing it with like 80 players or whatever it is. I know I haven't, I should say. I know I have not. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, Cartographers offers an interesting puzzle. That's the main core of it. The main core of it is how do you sit there and draw these shapes on the board in a way that fulfills the goals. This goal system is going to be similar to Isle of Skye, the idea that you have multiple goals scoring every single round, and so this gives you that kind of challenging aspect that you're simultaneously building for everything, but also being mindful of what scores now, what scores later, and when to start phasing out a goal. The second time, once you get to summer and you score A for the second time, or B for the second time I should say, then you're never scoring B again. So suddenly you have to kind of take that piece of information and mentally tune it out of your mind, or even better, turn it over so people don't get messed up. But once you've scored a goal twice, you don't need to worry about that at all. It's not part of your calculus, it's not part of your decision space. Combine the skills, which gives you another interesting decision thing to go through. Combine knowing that there are monsters at play that will show up and trying to build them around what works for you or not. Combine it with the various maps you have, and those all give you a different challenge as far as different things to be mindful of using the same engine, but slight nuanced differences to how you approach it. Cartographers is all about that puzzle. It's about drawing fun shapes on your board and trying to score those shapes as efficiently as possible based on the criteria given, and hopefully winning. I mean, hopefully having fun. Winning is kind of secondary. But that's really it. If you like flip and write kind of experiences, if you like roll and write experiences, if you like trying to draw shapes and crafting amazing villages, this has that kind of gameplay in a very accessible and very highly variable experience. The variability of the goals cannot be undersold, and it's the main reason to dive into Cartographers again and again and again, at least for myself, who really likes variability in my experiences. Every combination of goals is a different puzzle. This goal and that goal and that goal works one way, but you mix in 2 new goals and suddenly everything's changed, because you have to try to figure out the combination of how to make everything work at once, as well as trying to manage what actually heads your way as far as the cards, and putting that all together in a way that gives you the gameplay experience or the puzzle that you're looking for. As far as things I don't like, there's really 2 things. The first is highly, highly worth mentioning, which is I actually got rid of Cartographers, almost got rid of Cartographers, I should say. I almost got rid of the original Cartographers because I liked the game a lot, and I was like, I'm going to get rid of it, and I'll just get the app because I hate the fact that I can't see what's going on when I draw shapes on the board. You can sit there and draw all the little pretty trees you want and all the little lines and stuff, but unless you are really taking your time to make sure that your map is as pretty as possible, and by the way, I've seen some people who take their time to make their map look as pretty as possible, and it is a work of art. It's not what my map looks like. And so I got to a certain point, I got tired of trying to figure out how to score, not based on the complexity of the scoring, but just based on seeing stuff on this board. I find the drawing of shapes on your board does not give you the actual representation that I want on the table. It doesn't give you that. It's just hard to see. It's hard to see what I want, to the point that I almost got rid of this game. And then someone said in the comments, in one of my Games Leaving the Collection video, someone said in the comments, have you used colored pencils? And I felt like an idiot. Because the answer is no, I had not. And so sure enough, I grabbed some colored pencils and only ever played Cartographers again that way. In fact, the most recent Kickstarter of Cartographers, where they had the big deluxe box of heroes, offered players colored pencils for that exact reason. I do not play cartographers with these at all. The only reason these are here on the table is that you, watching this review, don't think that you get something you don't in the base game of cartographers. In fact, if I go ahead and grab one of these sheets over here, this is what a sheet of cartographers looks like for me now. It's just colored all over the place. Sometimes I take the time to still draw on the shapes, sometimes I just draw on the colors, but it takes 2 seconds to see what's going on. I only ever play cartographers with colored pencils or instruments of some sort, and I highly recommend you do the same. I think it will make the game significantly easier. It removes an unnecessary barrier from an otherwise great experience. The other thing that does bother me a little bit, but not nearly as much, is that sometimes the combination of cards often results in something just being clearly optimal. If you have 2 or 3 goals that work well together and one that doesn't, you're going to focus on the 3 that work well together, and sometimes the combination of things plus the combination that comes out, you could have slightly just less fun or less high scoring maps. It's more of a nitpick than a real thing I don't like, but it's certainly worth mentioning. As far as what I can see others not liking, the biggest thing is going to be these monsters. These monsters are mean. You're specifically and intentionally trying to draw them in such a way that it gets in others' ways. Now, if you want, an option you do have on the table, you could also take them out of the game entirely, but that changes the experience completely. But an option you do have on the table if you don't want to be as mean is to just play with the solo rules, even when playing with other players. There's a specific way the monsters come out, and that gives you a little bit more agency and control over it, as opposed to Tom being a complete jerk face to you instead. And so that is something you have as an option. For myself, I don't mind. I like the being mean part. I like it when someone throws a monster in my face, and I would say, in fact, I prefer the original Cartographers Heroes. When it comes to solo play, I prefer the original cartographers over heroes because I find the runes concept works better, versus the heroes actually matter more when Tom is being a jerkface. When Tom is sitting there and trying to screw up your board, the heroes matter more, as opposed to in solo, you already have a little bit more control over it. It's not perfect control, but a little bit more control. But yeah, that's the biggest thing as far as why this game might not be for you. It has, and if you don't like roll and rights or flipping rights in general, but it has that degree of hurting someone's well-crafted design. And even more offensive, they probably didn't draw their shapes as nicely as you draw yours, and that's really, really problematic. As far as final thoughts on Cartographers, I really like the game. I like the original Cartographers a lot, like I said already. Even when I was getting rid of it, I said that I'm getting rid of it and I'm getting the app because I enjoy the experience. Once somebody posted the pencil thing, I didn't get rid of it because I didn't feel the need to. I really enjoyed the experience, I really enjoyed the game, I just didn't like the scoring aspect, and that's removed if you use colored pencils, which is the only way I play the game right now. The game is fast-paced, it plays in roughly 30 to 45 minutes, depends on the players you're playing with. The game is easy to teach, it's easy to pull out, it is a solid roll and write game that I just really enjoy. I have a lot of fun playing it. It's simple, but it's accessible and fun at the same time. Overall, this is a 3.5 out of 5 for me. It's not necessarily like up here as far as how great the game is, but the accessibility compared to what it gives, it's an easy and solid recommendation that I really enjoy. As far as do you need this game? Do you need this game, especially if you have the original Cartographers? And I think the answer is no. At least for myself, the answer is no. I like Cartographers Heroes. I'm happy to have it. I'm happy with the extra variety that the new map gives, the new goal cards, the new all of that. And I would say arguably the biggest reason I would tell you to get it is because of the new goal cards. The new goal cards give you something else that matters to me a lot more than the subtle nuance between the heroes versus the runes. I don't care about the heroes versus the runes personally. I like both, but I don't think you need to pay $20 extra or whatever it is, $20, $25, whatever this is, just to get the heroes. I think the runes are totally fine. I think the original Cartographers is totally fine. I would say my main reason why I would encourage getting it, despite that, is going to be those goals. If you want more variety in your goals, if that's what you're looking for, then I think this is worth getting. If you're just looking for the gameplay changes, I don't know if that matters. Now, the map packs, on the other hand, those I very much do recommend. Again, with the caveat that you ideally are looking for more variety to your experience, otherwise, you still don't need them. But the map packs are going to give you a lot more change to how you actually play the central board. Sure, the goals mix up every single round, and you might have new monsters and all these different options, but the map is going to give you a full new, different way to approach the game, and I do recommend all the map packs in general. My favorite is the Undercity. Probably the other two I like equally. I like them both. I like the lava aspect, but it doesn't change the gameplay quite as much, but I do like managing the lava flowing out. And then Afril, or whatever it is, it's just a different challenge. It's both frustrating because there's a little bit less control as far as spreading things out, but that frustration almost leads to more choices and more agency as far as how to manage and mitigate around not being able to fill things. So Afril's tricky because I like the puzzle it gives while also finding it a little bit more constricting. So good and bad depending on what you're looking for in that sense. But that's my review of Cartographers Heroes and the various map packs and modules and all the things I have over here. A great game, an easy recommendation. And speaking of recommendations, if you want other game recommendations, I highly recommend Railroad Inc. It's a fantastic roll and write game that kind of gives you that same just general fun of checking off, of building a board. No issue with colors there, it's all the same color, although some issue depending on how bad your handwriting is. And then the other game I mentioned already, Isle of Skye. If you like the managing of different goals that Cartographers gives you, that idea of being mindful of multiple goals while scoring for different ones every single round, Isle of Skye does the exact same thing, and it does so brilliantly. It gives you a multiple rounds, and every single round you're scoring a different set of goals, and so you have that same mental puzzle, just in a completely different game past that. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.